What is going on? Welcome to a special presentation, a special wrestling retrospective of Wrestlemania IV. Myself, Scott Crusher, Matt from Keep On Collecting, we are joining forces just like the Mega Powers, and we're creating a special show around our shared love of pro wrestling, specifically the world of the WWF in the 80s and early 90s. Both Matt and myself, we grew up on wrestling.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, to a certain extent, you still enjoy
The odd show.
I don't enjoy modern wrestling so much. It's not one of the things I'm passionate about, but a big part of my toy collecting, a big part of my nostalgic passions is the world of the WWF from my childhood, the 80s and the early 90s. So we're going to share that passion with a special show. We're going to look to do this on an ongoing basis where we have the opportunity to do so. But for now, we're excited to talk about one of the more notable events of the late 80s. We're going to kick things off with Wrestlemania IV.
Wrestlemania IV. Well, we spoke about this, and I said, where do we begin, Scott? You know, there's a lot of history, a lot of nostalgia. For me, I went all the way back to WrestleMania, but I wanted something that Scott could remember as well. And Wrestlemania IV is where it all began for you, I think.
Yeah, so basically, I discovered the world of the WWF in 1992. But my first place to immerse myself in that was the video store.
Yep.
And my local video store, it had wrestling VHS tapes dating back as far as 1988. There wasn't really much prior to 1988. So we thought a good place to start was 1988. Sorry. And what was the tentpole event of wrestling at that time, of the WWF at that time? It was WrestleMania.
Yep.
So let's kick in. So now... So we watched Wrestlemania IV in preparation for this show. I watched it for the first time since seeing it back in the early 90s. So me watching Wrestlemania IV was the first time in about 30 years.
Wow.
What about yourself?
Pretty much the same here. Like, I remember this was on TV at the time. So the first few WrestleManias were being played on Channel 10. Look, whether I actually watched it live, probably not. Or I think it would have been delayed. But I wouldn't have watched it. It would have been on video cassette like yourself, and it would have probably been a couple of years later, like 89, 90. Yeah. So it's probably the same.
So do you reckon you went back and watched WrestleMania 4?
Yep.
Since the late 80s, early 90s?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I have watched it maybe once in between. I don't ask when. I was going through big rewatching a lot in the 90s, like mid to late 90s. I was watching a lot.
But we're still talking 20 plus years.
Still 20 years, yeah.
Alrighty, well, it's certainly an interesting event. Obviously, as far as the context goes, WrestleMania IV, 1988, held at Trump Plaza, Atlantic City.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I found notable is if you look at WrestleMania III at the Silverdome with 90,000 plus people, this was a much smaller setting. This was like 20,000 people.
It looked like there was more people there, but apparently 20,000.
Yeah, definitely a small crowd. And obviously, from a contextual standpoint, the key thing to know about, you know, the story going into WrestleMania IV is we've got a vacant WWF heavyweight title.
Correct. Yep.
So Hogan and Andre still feuding. We're a year after WrestleMania III, but the feud is still simmering. The beef is still cooking.
Yep.
And we had a situation where Ted DiBiase offered or kind of tried to buy the World Heavyweight title from Hulk Hogan. Yes. Hulk Hogan refused, as a good crowd favourite does.
There was a big hell no, wasn't there?
There was a big hell no.
Hell no! So
now, as far as I understand, or as far as I recall, Ted DiBiase bought the managing contract of Andre the Giant from Bobby Heenan.
Mm-hmm.
Andre agreed to sell the title to the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase.
Yep.
Andre won the belt from Hogan in somewhat of a dubious fashion.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We had the Hebner twins.
Hebner twins doing a
situation, pulling a swift one. And then we had Andre the Giant in turn selling that belt to DiBiase.
Yep.
President Jack Tunney being up in arms and saying, no, that's not how we do things here in the WWF. Yep. And then stripping the title, so we have a vacant WWF heavyweight title, and we've got a 14-man elimination tournament to crown a brand new champion.
Yep. With
Hulk and Andre skipping to the second round of the tournament, being as taking into account the fact that they are the ex-champion. So that's the story going into it. Yep. And then we've also got Honky Tonk Man and Brutus Beefcake feuding, and we've got the Ultimate Warrior and we've got Hercules feuding, and they have a match in there as well. So So that's really how it kicks off. That's the context going in. First match,
Behind the scenes, yeah.
we've got the 20-man invitational battle royal.
Yes, yeah. This was interesting. I noticed when they all came out, there was no music being played. Well, I mean, I guess.
There was actually quite a few entrances without music, and there was quite a few entrances that we didn't see. We just cut to one of the competitors in the ring already.
Yeah.
So we've got a 20-man invitational battle royal. I'm not going to recap on everyone that was in there, but
all people that we knew.
Yeah, all the familiar faces, all the main tag teams and singles competitors that weren't part of the tournament or weren't competing elsewhere on the card. One thing I did find interesting though is, growing up watching wrestling, I always loved battle royals, specifically the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble was always my favourite event, but one thing that's a characteristic of the Royal Rumble is we've got the competitors coming in every 2 minutes sequentially. I found it really quite jarring to see 20 men in the ring, all leant back, getting introduced one at a time.
Yep.
No one's getting into it early. You know, typically when you watch pro wrestling, as soon as someone slides under the ropes, it's on, and then the bell rings.
Yep.
These guys were all just kicked back,
they're all sedate, and calm.
leisurely getting introduced. I'm not on the clock yet, so and then the bell rings and they're all at it.
They're all into it. Yeah.
And one thing I will say is, it wasn't the best battle royal you'll ever see.
No, it wasn't.
But I love the fact that that's how we kick off Wrestlemania, because it's a chaotic. We've got a lot of bodies in the ring, and it's just a fun, chaotic way to kick off the event.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
As far as my kind of recollection of the match, to me, nothing particularly interesting happened until we got down to our last 3 or 4 guys.
The last 3 competitors really made the moment. There was Bad News Brown, and it was Junkyard Dog and Bret Hart.
And a heel Bret the Hitman Hart, a bad guy Bret Hart, which I found interesting because most of my childhood I remember Bret Hart being a fan favourite. So we got down to those guys, and we've got Bad News Brown and Bret Hart teaming up to get the dog out of there.
We'll get rid of Junkyard Dog.
And Junkyard Dog's on all fours, throwing headbutts.
Yeah, he had his moment. He was rolling around, headbutting both of them, having turns. It was a good spot for him.
Doing what it does. That was a good spot. Yeah. But obviously, ultimately, Bad News Brown and Bret Hart team up to get the dog out of there. And they're kind of almost celebrating together.
Yeah.
That was a weird moment.
Someone's got to win, guys.
That's right. And then Bad News Brown pulls the double cross.
Yep.
Hits the ghetto blaster.
He got up, off the air, bang, kicking Bret in the back. That was a pretty impressive move.
That was a sweet move. Yep. Gets Bret out of there.
Yeah.
Gets the 10-foot tall trophy.
Yep.
And Bret Hart doesn't have it. He gets back in the ring.
No.
He starts laying into Bad News Brown and absolutely destroys the trophy.
Smashes over him.
I mean, so was it the best battle royal you'll ever see? No. But I liked it. I thought it was a fun way to start the show.
Yeah.
And it was a fun way to get the crowd into it straight away, because there's nothing boring about 20 bodies in the ring.
No, there's always something happening, right? People are getting thrown out left, right and centre, and then there's just the last final scene, which helps Bret.
That's right. And because it was so frenetic, it was almost like the commentary didn't know what to call.
That's right.
Until we got down to those last 3.
Yeah. They'll a bit random, the commentary at that point.
Yeah, they were. And obviously we didn't mention this, but we've got Jesse the Body Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon on the commentary.
Yeah, I love Jesse. He's brilliant.
I like those pair.
Oh, the pair of them. They bounce off each other. Lots of quips from Jesse.
That's right.
And Gorilla's quick, oh, come on, Jess.
That's right. And then throughout the course of the evening, we've got Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, who I got to admit, I didn't know who that was.
I didn't know who that was either.
Providing a bit of comic relief. He has his moments.
Yeah.
And he spends the course of the evening in a very 80s kind of subplot of trying to track down and get a kiss from Vanna White, something that totally wouldn't fly today. Vanna White, the hostess of Wheel of Fortune at the time, being a special guest of the event. Obviously, WrestleMania was all about kind of the Hollywood guests and the celebrity involvement.
Those early ones, yes. Yeah. Well, even now, I guess, still.
Exactly. So that's how the event kicks off. That's our Battle Royal. That's our first match of the evening, and we're underway.
Yeah.
Alrighty, next up, our 14-man tournament to crown the new heavyweight champ gets under the way with a first-round match between Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase.
Yes, and who's in his corner?
And Ted DiBiase's obviously got Andre the Giant in his corner. He might have had Virgil in his corner as well.
I think at that time he had Virgil still too.
So, obviously throughout the course of this event, Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant are very much aligned, but interestingly, they're both in the tournament. So at this point, we don't know how that's going to play out. Are they going to be forced to meet one another?
Yeah.
And if so, is Andre going to lay down, or what's going to be the outcome there? So that's interesting. Anything notable about this match for you? Because one thing that I will say is, because this event was defined by this 14-man tournament. There's a ton of matches, so a lot of these we will blast through pretty quickly.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
For you, Matt, anything
nothing
notable?
memorable. I mean, I guess it just shows that Andre is going to be a force in this and change it up for DiBiase. I didn't know. I couldn't remember this match when I rewatched it. So
yeah, I mean,
nothing memorable.
I love Ted DiBiase.
Oh, brilliant character! Yeah,
I think Ted DiBiase is the perfect bad guy. Probably the defining bad guy in the WWF of my childhood.
And losing the...
The cat's out of the bag. That's all right. Look, it's a 30... What are we talking about? We're talking about a 34-year-old event. There's going to be spoilers, folks.
Oh, yeah. No, and losing this didn't hurt his career in the slightest.
No.
He's such a strong character and a strong wrestler. He just kept going through WWF. Yeah.
Ted DiBiase is awesome. A fantastic character. A heel that's very reflective of the 80s greed is good... You know
Correct.
what I mean?
Yep.
Kind of theme.
Yep.
Money
can buy anything.
That's right. A great worker. I mean, his technical wrestling's fantastic. His selling is wonderful.
Oh, yes.
Hacksaw is the lovable buffoon in this match, but DiBiase still manages to sell his efforts, which is great. But essentially, we've got Andre getting in the way, tripping up Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and DiBiase hitting him from behind, and it's all over. So Hacksaw's out. DiBiase moves on. Next up, we've got a promo. We've got Mean Gene interviewing Brutus the Barber Beefcake in preparation for Beefcake challenging the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title. I found this promo interesting. We've got the Beefer with the wild eyes, with the bright pink outfit that made me really appreciate this Hasbro right here. Yeah. The other thing I appreciated about this promo is Mean Gene looking Beefcake dead at his groin and saying, "Wow, what a package."
I forgot about that.
Look, I don't know.
That's brilliant, though.
That is brilliant. That's 80s WWF. Love Mean Gene. Next up, we've got another one of many quick first-round matches that were very quick, and it was just about quickly thinning out the field to get onto the latter part of the tournament. We've got Dino Bravo taking on Don Morocco. A pretty quick, relatively competitive match, with Morocco winning by DQ after Dino Bravo pulled the ref in the way. So we've got Dino Bravo goes out, Don Morocco goes on.
Yeah, nothing to really say about this match. I remember it. It was good to see Superstar Billy Graham.
In the tie-dye.
Yeah, in the tie-dye. But otherwise, just a simple match.
That's it. Alrighty, next up we've got another first-round match between two wrestlers that I remember fondly from my childhood. We've got Greg the Hammer Valentine. We've got Ricky Steamboat, not the Dragon Ricky Steamboat.
Not yet, no.
Just Ricky Steamboat. So two wrestlers that I thought had the makings of a great match. But as with all of these first round matches, most of them are really quick because we do have a 15-minute time limit on these matches.
Yep.
And we ultimately have a decent back and forth match. We've got Ricky Steamboat starting to get the better of things, hitting a crossbody off the top rope, and Greg Valentine reversing it, get a big old handful of tights, and getting a dodgy pinfall. Now, my impression watching this match was it's a bit of a missed opportunity because obviously, looking back at WrestleMania 3, we had the iconic match between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. As we're going to get to shortly, Macho Man Randy Savage is facing the winner of this match in the second round. So I was expecting to see a Macho Man Steamboat rematch, but we didn't get that. Instead, we have Valentine going through.
Yeah, and I think that's because at the time, I think Ricky Steamboat had asked for some time off to go, and his wife was going to have a baby, or they were going to have a child, and he asked for some time off. This put him in bad light with Vince. Vince wasn't impressed. And you'll find that he did a bunch of wrestling matches with Greg Valentine after this. They did a bunch of house shows, as they called them. And then he left. Another couple of months later, he was gone from WWF.
Gotcha. Okay, because Ricky Steamboat did come down the aisle with his newborn son in a matching outfit to him, which I thought was the ultimate good guy play.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to get a big pop from the crowd when you come down the entranceway with your little baby, so that does make sense. He wanted to spend some time with his family.
Yep.
Vince wasn't having it.
He didn't want it, no.
And the hammer goes through.
Love it.
Next up, we've got a promo. We've got Mean Gene interviewing the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs, yeah.
So we've got Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid, the British Bulldogs, with the mascot Matilda, fresh off being dog-napped by the Islanders.
Yes.
And the boys are with Coco Beware. And they're getting ready for their 3-man or 6-man tag team match with the Islanders and Bobby Heenan. The whole plot point here is about getting revenge from the dog napping of Matilda.
Which apparently, like I've read that was meant to be involve the Heart Foundation, but Brett had refused to do that storyline. So I think the Islanders were put into the storyline instead.
I thought it played well though, because obviously you've got the Islanders with Bobby Heenan, and the whole point of this interview segment is all about Matilda having gone under weasel hunting training. So she's all ready to get some. She's all ready to hunt down the weasel Bobby Heenan and get some revenge. I like that piece. Listen, I'm a British Bulldog dad. I'm an English Bulldog dad, so we're going to talk about that when we get to their match. But anything involving the Bulldogs going weasel hunting, I absolutely love that. Alrighty, so next up we've got the aforementioned first round match involving Randy Savage. He's up against the Natural Butch Reed.
Yep.
Once again, another quick match. I don't remember too much about it. A bit of back and forth. Butch Reed starting to get the better of Randy Savage. Goes up to the top rope, starts chirping at Elizabeth, who's looking lovely. And as Savage tosses him off the top rope, hits the big elbow, and we have Randy Savage going through to the second round against Greg the Hammer Valentine. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no thoughts about it. I think this is just another match filler, like just to progress the tournament.
Well, that's it. We're going to blast through a lot of these matches really quickly, because this card, by nature of the fact that it had this tournament structure along with other non-tournament matches, this WrestleMania had 16 matches. So naturally, a lot of them are super quick. Yep. And then next up, we've got Bobby Heenan along with the Islanders responding to the Bulldogs, along with Bob Uecker, who's offering a bit of comic relief at this point in time in relation to his rivalry with Jesse Ventura and jawing off about cozying up with Vanna White. So just a very quick interview with the Weasel and with the Islanders responding to the Bulldogs. Now, next up, we've got another very quick first-round match. We've got Bam Bam Bigelow, who I always really enjoyed growing up. He's taken on the one-man gang.
Yeah, good mover he was, wasn't he?
That's right. Bam Bam was great. But we've got just a really quick first-round match here. Essentially, Bam Bam starts getting some offense off. As he's running the rope, Slick, who's in one-man gang's corner, he pulls down that top rope, so Bam Bam goes out.
Yep.
And Slick gets in his way while he's trying to get back in the ring, and essentially we've got a quick count out. So we've got one-man gang going through by way of count out, another quick match, and unfortunately, I was a bit bummed out to see Bam Bam Bigelow go out.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, I couldn't remember him actually going forward and getting a massive push. I was a bit surprised to see him here in 1988. I'd forgot that he was there previous, and then he leaves, and he must come back to the WWF. And I really remember Bam Bam's second run in the WWF in the 90s more than this run.
Yeah, as do I.
Yeah, but no memories. Otherwise, it's just another filler, isn't it?
Yeah, another quick first round match. So next up, we've got one of my favourite promos, one of my favourite interview segments of the show. We've got Mean Gene interviewing a very fired up Hulk Hogan. He kicks things off in fine form. Fee Fi Fo Fum Andre, 1 long year and your time has come. Love that strong start. And the interesting thing about it, he talks about picking Andre up and slamming him through the Trump Plaza so hard that a fault line from Atlantic City to Tampa, Florida opens up.
And when
all the Hulksters and Donald Trump fall into the ocean, they can cling on to the largest back in the world, and he's going to doggy paddle them to safety.
He can really sell a promo, Hulk Hogan.
Oh, man,
always.
He's going hard.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I mean, as far as late 80s Hulkster, I thought that was awesome.
Just brilliant. Yeah, he's in his prime here, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, he's been the man for 3 years.
Yeah, closer to 4, I think. I think
he
was just, that's why this is all happening. He's been there for 4 years, needed a bit of a break, go and film some movies, and but he's just can really work a mic.
Alrighty, next up we've got another first round match. This is the longest of the first round matches.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So we've got Ravishing Rick Rude against Jake the Snake Roberts. 2 guys that I, once again, loved growing up. Jake Roberts was one of my favourites. Rick Rude I thought was really underrated as a performer, as a character. Rick Rude comes down the aisle first. He makes he's the classic vain heel character.
Yeah.
Tells him to cut his music so he can warn all of the husbands in the crowd that they're running a big risk by letting their ladies watch him derobe.
Yeah.
Bobby Heenan takes his robe off, but music starts up again, so Rick Rude can get the robe off. And then we've got Jake the Snake Roberts coming down the aisle with Damien over his shoulder. Stark contrast. He's all business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then we've got what I found was a pretty enjoyable match. But look, at the end of the day, Rick Rude and Jake Roberts are great. They can brawl. They can do the technical stuff. Those 2 guys can do it all. They can combine for a great match. Now, at one point, the pace of the match slowed, and it was more about like wrist locks and chin holds And I heard some chants of boring in the crowd, which was interesting because up until that point we've got 3-4 minute quick matches. But these guys had some room, this match had some room to breathe. I kind of enjoyed it. But ultimately, there's no satisfying conclusion to it because,
I think,
Rick Rude is kind of wearing down on Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts starts to rally and it looks like he might get the job done. And then we've got, just the bell. And for a reason that we don't know, we think maybe is one of them submitted to one of these holds. And then it's left to Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura to tell us, oh no, there's a 15-minute time limit on these first round matches. Yeah. So both these guys go out of the tournament. And see, I guess one of the byproducts of having a long tournament structure within one event is there was just not time for all of the matches to play out. So you had to have double DQs or count, you had to have double countouts, double DQs, or time limit draws in order to eliminate some of these competitors two at a time.
Even like in later tournaments like King of the Ring, there'd be things like this happening. And I think it was a little bit frustrating because these two, I really like you, Scott. I love these two wrestlers. Grown up on these guys, and they did put a fine performance in. I guess at one point I was like the audience member. I did find it a bit boring, but I feel that I guess there was just no plan for them at this point, and I don't think they went off into a campaign against each other or anything. So it felt like a bit of a waste.
Yeah, so ultimately we've got both those guys going out, which means the one-man gang winner of the previous first round match, he gets a bye. He goes straight through to the semi-finals.
Yeah, and so I guess that all just plays into the storyline of the night.
Alrighty, so next up we got one of my childhood favourites. Not one of my childhood favourite matches by any means, but one of my childhood favourite wrestlers, the Ultimate Warrior, in his pay-per-view debut against the man he's feuding with, Hercules. I don't know if at this point he's Hercules Hernandez or just Hercules.
I can't remember, but it was just they were having a thing against each other, weren't they?
Yeah, they were having a beef, and the Warrior races down the aisle. One of the greatest entrances in wrestling, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he's pretty crazy.
Entrance music, a wild entrance, love all that.
All the ropes,
and we've got the opposite of the match we've seen previously. No technical spots, just chest beating, mean mugging, clotheslines, punches, and reverse knife edges, and that's the match.
Yeah, it's getting my least favourite match of the pay-per-view. I think this one.
It's not my least favourite. My least favourite are probably just these first round matches that are gone in 3-4 minutes. But look, we've just got a bit of a brawl, followed by Hercules getting the Ultimate Warrior up in a suplex. Yeah. They both land on their backs, but apparently this had to be explained to me by the commentators because I didn't understand. Apparently, once the belly to back suplex went down, the Warrior got his shoulder up, which meant he wasn't being pinned. Yeah. So Hercules lost. So anyway, just a weird quick match.
If you're getting commentators having to explain the ending,
that's right.
It's probably not really good. Match.
That's right. So we've got the Warrior walking away the winner. One thing I did like though, I did like the sequence at the end where Hercules starts strangling the Warrior with his chain, and then the Warrior gets it off him and just starts swinging it around like a lunatic.
Like he is a lunatic.
That was entertaining enough. But look, beyond that, there's really not too much to say about the Warrior versus Hercules. Alrighty, guys. Next up, we've got the match around which this event was built.
Yeah, the whole poster.
Or at least promoted. The poster, the VHS covers were all about the ongoing beef between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant.
That's right. Our center stage.
Our men on center stage right here. So, from what I remember, we got a brief highlights package that told the story so far. We've got, prior to WrestleMania 3, we've got the bit about Andre challenging Hogan for the title and ripping off his shirt and ripping off his cross and, Rowdy Roddy Piper telling Hulk he's bleeding. Then we've got the match between Hulk and Andre at WrestleMania 3.
Yep.
Then we've got Hulk saying no to selling the title to DiBiase.
Yep.
We've got the whole thing around the Andre beating Hulk under dodgy conditions.
Yep.
And then in doing so, then selling the belt to DiBiase. So we've got a nice little highlights package that kind of tells the story of the feud. And then we've got the match itself. And I won't go into too much detail around the match, but I found it pretty short and anticlimactic considering it's the whole...
It's supposed to be the...
It's the match on the marquee.
Correct, yeah.
So essentially, long story short, we've got DiBiase threatening Hogan with the steel chair.
Yep.
Hogan then gets his hands on the chair and uses it against Andre, but doesn't get disqualified, which goes in stark contrast to how some of the other matches during this card end. But then
Yes.
Andre gets the belt, gets the chair back off Hogan, and he uses it.
Yep.
And that's when the disqualification is called, and they're both disqualified.
Both DQ'd.
So it was just a weird match. Now, obviously, it played out as it had to, because
Correct, yeah.
the WWF wanted both those guys. Well, it wasn't that the WWF wanted those guys out of the picture. Hogan had to get out of the picture because he was filming No Holds Barred.
That's right, yeah, moving on, yeah.
And it was about getting those two out of the picture in order to pave the way for a new champion. So, you know, and then the way the match ended, we have Hulk Hogan celebrating. His music plays, and he celebrates for
Like
a longer period of time than the match went for. So he makes the hero's exit. He's flexing, he's posing, his music's playing. And I found that a bit jarring because we obviously know that Hogan had to get out of the title picture because of his commitments. But why would he be celebrating?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm confused on why he would. I mean, he hasn't beaten Andre.
So Hulk Hogan in this moment is facing the prospect of not being champion so ending his first WrestleMania without the belt around his waist. Wouldn't he be furious?
You'd think so.
And I know it's all storytelling, and there's going to be a new champion. And it would have been. I actually kind of like the fact that those two are out of the picture. So for the first time in the history of WrestleMania, we're going to have a new champion.
New champion's going to be crowned. Yeah.
The fact that the Hulkster was getting that hero's exit, was flexing, was celebrating his music, and he seemed happy.
Was it just his thing though?
I guess it's just giving the crowd what they want.
Yeah, at that time
they're celebrating the awesome power of the Hulkster. I mean, I found it kind of weird though.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think more it's just to give the crowd, this is what I do after a match. I have got one up over the baddies here. They haven't got up over top of me.
That's right.
And here I am posing. I'm out of here.
I mean, he did slam Andre after that match ended.
Yeah, he did.
So he did slam Andre. So I guess, you know, you get that payoff, but you've already seen that for the first time 1 year earlier. Yeah. So that's not a moment in itself that deserves the celebration. I just found it a bit unusual.
Yeah, it was unusual, but no, I think that's it. That's just Hulk Hogan.
But that's it. So, and in that moment, we know we're getting a first time champion.
Yeah.
So we're getting a brand new WWF champion.
They're out of the picture. They're gone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Next up, once we finally get through with Hulk Hogan posing and celebrating his double disqualification. Oddly enough, I won't continue ranting about that. Next up, we've got an interview segment with Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah. And the interesting thing here is Macho Man Randy Savage is paying big tribute to Hulk Hogan. So this is where we start to really reinforce the friendship, the alliance between Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. Randy Savage is paying tribute to his mate, his Mega Powers mate, and also pledging to go all the way himself. So here's where we set the scene for what, spoiler alert, what Macho Man Randy Savage will ultimately do throughout the course of the event.
Correct.
Next up, we've got the second round match between the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Don Morocco. Once again, I don't remember anything particularly notable from this match. Virgil is missing. He's missing in action after copping an absolute hiding from Hulk Hogan.
He slammed him in the aisles, didn't he?
That's right, after Andre and Hogan's match. So Virgil is laid up out the back in the sick bay.
Yeah, and that's it for Virgil for the night.
And I think that is it for Virgil for the night. That was a horrible botched suplex. and once again, we've got a match between Morocco and DiBiase that I don't remember much about, other than DiBiase catching Morocco running the ropes, hitting a clothesline, and getting the pinfall.
Yeah, it was nothing to mention here, just a very basic match.
But the other thing to mention here is now the fact that DiBiase's got through his second round match. Yes. And Andre and Hogan are both out of the picture. DiBiase gets a bye in the semi-finals, and now he goes straight through to the final. So that's it for DiBiase until the final, until the final world title match.
Yep, and we'll explain why soon.
Alrighty, next up we've got the last of our second round matches. Yep. Due to the fact that we had Jake Roberts and Rick Rude getting the timeout disqualification or the time limit draw and going out. We've got One Man Gang going straight through to the semis.
Correct,
and for that reason, we've only got one more second round match, which is Greg the Hammer Valentine versus the Macho Man Randy Savage. So the winner of this match going through to face the One Man Gang in the semis.
That's right, yep.
And again, this was a relatively quick match. Randy Savage and Elizabeth make the first of their many attire changes throughout the evening. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did notice that. Every match Macho did, there's a new outfit.
Every match Macho did, there was a new set of trunks, and maybe even a new robe.
There was a new robe too.
And we had Liz changing as well, so she matched her man. So we've got
incredible
Savage changing from the powder blue to the classic orange, which I like my Randy Savage in the Mega Powers style orange trunks.
Yep.
And we've got a relatively quick match, but a decent match between Greg the Hammer Valentine and Macho Man Randy Savage. Essentially, we've got a back and forth affair, and we've got Randy Savage turning an attempt at the Hammer's figure 4 leg lock into a small package and getting the dub.
Getting the win, yeah.
So we've got so our picture now, as far as our tournament goes, we've got Ted DiBiase going straight through to the final through Andre and Hoaxster putting themselves out, and we've got Randy Savage taking on the one-man gang in the semi to face Ted DiBiase. So the field does quickly narrow, but the theme of the tournament, a big part of this storytelling is DiBiase gets an easy run thanks to Andre and the Hulkster taking one another out, and Randy Savage having to do things the hard way.
That's right, yeah. To make him more, I think, just to make him more look at the hard battle he's been fought. He deserves it. We just given another spoiler alert. No, we know. But yeah,
we know where we're going here.
Yeah, so it's just to give Macho Man, I guess, that look what he's fought to have.
That's correct.
It is all part of the storyline.
Alrighty, next up we've got the Intercontinental title match. We've got the Honky Tonk Man himself defending his title against Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is a fun match. So we've got Honky Tonk Man along with Peggy Sue. And the Colonel Jimmy Hart. We've got Brutus Beefcake, I believe, just by himself.
Just alone,
So he's got to deal with the tomfoolery of the Colonel. And we have an interesting back and forth match. This one is all about the slapstick humour, though. Like, as far as I can recall, there's no technical spots. This is all about Brutus doing the snipping gesture and messing up Honky's hair and Honky sliding out of the ring to fix his hair, and Peggy Sue reassuring him that he looks good. I mean, this is all very much a pantomime. As far as the outcome of the match, we have, I believe, Honky setting up the shake, rattle, and roll. We have Brutus somehow, avoiding that and getting Honky into the sleeper hold, putting him to sleep. But as Honky's going out, we've got the Colonel Jimmy Hart hitting the ref with the megaphone. Knocking the ref unconscious, so there's no one there to call the submission win for the Beefcake. So what's the Beefer do? He grabs the Colonel, gets the
closest head of hair.
He grabs Jimmy Hart and cuts that glorious mullet all the way off. So
he's screaming.
So it's just a fun, entertaining outcome for the match.
100%.
But there's no one to call the victory.
No.
And they eventually somehow managed to revive Honky and get him out of there. And the Beefcake wins by DQ. But unfortunately, obviously, as a result of that, doesn't get the belt.
No, that was basically Honky Tonk's whole reign, just escaping the clean loss to lose that belt. But that's fine. I had a whole new appreciation of Honky Tonk after this match. I really enjoyed it. Actually, there was a few laugh out loud moments for myself. So I guess, for me, this is probably have to be the favourite match of the night. Really enjoyed it.
I don't know if I would call this my favourite match of the night, or one of them. But this was definitely an entertaining match. It was was just a fun match. I mean, between two characters, more so than world class wrestlers. Look, in my opinion, that's the other thing. I'm not a super educated wrestling fan. I'm someone who loved wrestling as a kid and is now watching these events again with a set of adult eyes. So my opinions are mine only. I'm just going to put that out there real quick. But yeah, I found it entertaining. I like these two characters, and they combine for a fun feud.
Absolutely. A couple of interesting notes too, like the Colonel. Like, this was obviously before he's known as Mouth of the South.
Yes.
So, and I guess that's in reference to Honky Tonk having that whole Elvis.
That's right.
Persona.
The Colonel Tom Parker.
Yeah.
So the Colonel.
So that was quite interesting. And what's her name? Peggy Sue. Like a bit behind the scenes, that was actually Sherry Martel.
Yeah, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was actually the women's champion at the time. But on the main pay-per-views, if they required Peggy Sue, they would get Sherry Martel to do that.
And she did a great job of being a different character.
Absolutely, just helping out Honky Tonk. Took a back seat as his valet and helped him out.
But dancing with him down the entryway and just having fun with it.
That's why. That's a great way that you can't tell that it's Sherry Martel.
That's right. And the wig and the glasses help, but she definitely channeled a different character for that role.
Yeah, brilliant.
So definitely a fun match.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, so next up we've got Andre backstage with Bob Uecker.
Yes.
With an interesting promo. And here's where Andre reveals that the way the match unfolded with Hulk Hogan was his grand plan the whole way.
Yeah.
So, you know, Andre was there to intentionally get them both DQ'd, take himself out of the picture, but more importantly, take Hogan out of the picture and pave the way for DiBiase to go all the way.
Yeah, I loved it. And Bob Uecker is just selling this interview. Complete comedy relief by Bob Uecker, because Andre's hand is just huge and it covers his head, Bob Uecker's head, and it's just... it's got its serious points, but it's also just another fun part of the night.
Bob Uecker is definitely the comedic relief, and
sure.
I enjoyed him in that segment.
And apparently he's backstage, not really to interview these wrestlers, but he's trying to find Vanna White. That's his main purpose.
Yeah, that's the whole subplot when it comes to Bob Uecker, is his search for Vanna White, which is a bit creepy, but reflective of that era.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, another fun segment.
And then we've got a fun match, in my opinion. We've got a 6-man tag match. So we've got the Islanders coming down the aisle with Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yep.
Heenan is in the like attack dog armor outfit,
That's right.
which I found hilarious. So he's getting ready to be in the warpath of the Bulldogs and Matilda.
Yep.
And then we've got the Bulldogs along with Coco Beware.
Yep.
We've got the two mascots. We've got Matilda the Bulldog, and we've got Frankie.
Frankie the Bird.
And then I found it kind of cool how Matilda and Frankie both had their little perches next to the ring. And look, we've got a fun match. They get some offense off on the Weasel, but ultimately we've got the Islanders and Bobby Heenan having the opportunity to triple team Coco Beware.
Yep.
And then while the referee is contending with the Bulldogs, the Islanders, in an interesting spot, kind of, you know, hoist Heenan up and splash him down onto Coco Beware. So Heenan actually gets the pinfall.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
And then we've got my favourite moment of this whole sequence, and one of my favourite moments of the event, where we've got the Bulldogs. They get Matilda in the ring and out of the ring, and they chase after
Heenan.
And we have this interesting sequence where Matilda is like sniffing around Heenan like an excited dog, while Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura do a great job of selling them all in. We've got Jesse the Body Ventura coming out with a line, something along the lines of, "Oh, they got to do something about that vicious dog."
Yeah, it's licking him to death.
And once again, as like an English bulldog parent, all I see is like an excited bulldog sniffing around Heenan, while everyone around them is like selling this vicious mauling.
Exactly.
So
it's fun to
I thought that was absolutely hilarious. So that was definitely
very different to see Heenan having a wrestling match too, wasn't it?
That's actually a really good point. When the Islanders came down the aisle with Heenan,
yes,
I half expected Heenan to introduce a special member,
That's right. Team.
Well, I mean, obviously Heenan had a wrestling career, but I don't remember, you know, to my whole childhood, the era of wrestling that I was really into, Heenan was exclusively a manager.
Yeah, okay. No, every now and then he did pop on that wrestling garb, and this was one particular match that he did it.
That's right.
He did all right, I thought.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're working around him, and he's got very limited, like, in-ring ability, but...
he's doing what his character should. He's getting in the cheap shots. He's being part of those triple team spots.
Correct.
So,
yeah. It worked brilliantly. And,
I agree.
Yeah, Bobby did really well in that match.
I thought it was a fun match and a fun outcome.
2 fun matches before we finalise the final part. Finalise the end of the night.
Alrighty, so next up, I didn't really understand the context of this moment, but for some reason we've got Jesse the Body getting maybe some honour or some award, or being kind of honoured with his service to wrestling. I'm not too sure, but for some reason he stands up on the announcer's booth and just starts flexing.
Takes off his jacket and starts flexing, but I think it was just because he'd become a bit of a movie star. He'd done his Predator, The Running Man, and I guess it was just acknowledging Jesse for what he's done.
So by 1988, Jesse Ventura is like a star that's transcended wrestling?
Yeah, he couldn't wrestle anymore. I think he had retired by that stage.
Okay, but he's a movie star? Like, people away from wrestling know who Jesse Ventura is in 88?
Yes. Yeah, he done the Predator movie with Arnie.
He was great.
Set him up, and then he did The Running Man as well. So,
okay.
And I'm guessing he's a few years away from his mayor run as well.
Okay.
For the state of Minnesota. But, he's definitely given up the wrestling by this stage.
Okay, but for reasons that I'm not 100% clear on, we've got Jesse Ventura having a pose, having a flex, and having a bit of moment of shine, which is cool with me.
Oh, I love Jesse Ventura. He's a great character. I think they had signed... I don't know if we're going to cut this out. They had signed Jesse, they had signed a big contract with, I think it was the Fox Network, and part of that was Jesse Ventura. So Vince was very upset that he had actually left the WWE for a period to do these movies. So, and he was always, contacting Jesse, come back, I need you. You're supposed to be part of this. And he eventually came back, but for a lot of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so next up, we've got the one semi-final. You'll remember that DiBiase goes straight through to the final, so that leaves us with our lone semi-final, which is the Macho Man Randy Savage and the One Man Gang.
One Man Gang, yep.
A pretty quick match. Again, we're at the point now where Savage has had 2 matches, so the narrative of him being worn down is again being sold by the commentary team.
Yeah.
And once again, Gang as the much larger guy is getting the better of
beating him down
of Randy Savage. We have a weird moment where Slick is up on the apron and Liz is up on the apron as well.
Liz is up on the apron and Slick comes around and he's getting in her face and whether he's trying to get a reaction from Elizabeth, but she's kind of just ignoring him. Like he's giving her the verbals and she's like...
I found it a bit of an unusual sequence as well, but ultimately we've got Randy Savage winning that match via disqualification after taking a shot from the cane of Slick.
Yeah.
And then once he's already got the DQ, when he gets up on the top rope and hits One Man Gang with the elbow or with the axe handle, whichever that was, while One Man Gang and Slick are kind of conferring in the ring. Slick and One Man Gang go down and Slick gets squashed by One Man Gang. So it's an interesting sequence of events. But ultimately, we have Macho Man Randy Savage and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase set for the main event for the final for the WWF title.
Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that one. Alrighty, but before we can get to that final in the tournament between Randy Savage and Ted DiBiase, we've got one penultimate match. We've got the tag team titles between Strikeforce, who are the tag team champions, defending their belts against Demolition.
Correct, yep.
And I don't know about you, I love Demolition. I know
you do.
Among a certain segment of wrestling fans, they're seen as a bit of a kind of a poor man's Road Warriors or Legion of Doom. I love the Legion of Doom. They're my guys. But I also really like Demolition in this era of the late 80s. So Demolition come down the aisle. They got a wicked entrance song. Absolutely love Demolition's entrance song.
It's because you love Demolition.
True, very, very true. And then we've got Strikeforce, the tag team champions, coming down the aisle. And I've got to say, for me, the era of wrestling that I grew up on was very much the era of the model Rick Martel and El Matador Tito Santana.
Oh, okay, yep.
So for me, it's a bit jarring to see them prior to that, especially seeing Rick Martel as a good guy, because I remember him as the heel, the model.
Yeah. Well, this is prior to their breakup.
Absolutely. So we've essentially got a match that's all about the contrast between the fast, athletic, aerial maneuvers of Strikeforce against just the power and the roughhousing of Demolition. And one thing I've got to say is Demolition are far bigger than Strikeforce. And one thing that I kind of thought about was, obviously Smash from Demolition is ultimately the Repo Man.
Yes,
but Smash from Demolition is so imposing and intimidating, and Repo Man is anything but.
Correct.
So it's I don't know. That was
contrasting characters. Really.
That was watching this was one thing. One thing I kind of took note of watching this was I can't believe that guy right there is the Repo Man. But essentially, we've got.
I don't know what I thought.
We've got Demolition starting to get the better of things. They're wearing down on Tito Santana.
Yeah.
Tito reverses it, and while he's running the ropes, he hits the flying forearm, which is great. We've got Jesse, the Body Ventura, in fine form here, calling Tito Santana Chico Santana, and telling him that he bets Chico wishes he was back in Tijuana selling tacos. So the Body's in great form.
Yep.
But ultimately, like I mentioned, we've got Tito Santana getting that flying forearm. We've got Martel getting in the ring, putting either axe or smash in the Boston Crab. And then while Mr. Fuji was distracting the ref, the other member of Demolition hits Martel with the cane, gets the dodgy pin, or gets the pin under controversial circumstances, and we've got our new tag team champions.
I personally, I guess I'm a little bit opposite to you. Demolition to me was never a team I was very interested in watching. I found them, I don't know why. Maybe I was one of those people that always thought that they were a poor man's Road Warriors. I love the Road Warriors. Tito Santana, I love Tito Santana. He was around from the very first WrestleMania, so to watch his career, now he's with Rick Martel, and of course he goes on, as you said, to El Matador. He's with WWE for 10 years or so, and I love watching Tito Santana. He just personifies that working man's wrestling.
Sure. And like Rick Martel and Tito Santana are great wrestlers.
Oh, but yes, definitely. Look, I don't know too much about Rick Martel. I don't know what time he joined the WWE, but them as a team, they worked really well. I thought this is the moment where they broke up, and it started that big feud between them. But no, that was like about 12 months in the future. But yeah. Look, I didn't really enjoy the match.
Not one of your
all that
favourites.
much. No,
Fair enough.
It's not the worst match, but it wasn't one of my favourites.
Fair enough. Alrighty, so there's the tag team title match done. We've got Demolition as new tag team champions, and all that's left to do is for the Macho Man and the $1 Million Man.
It's been a long night.
To face off for the belt.
And this is probably the problem was it's just before the final. I'm probably just going, I want the final. It's been 3.5 hours almost.
It's a long card. I mean, there's definitely. I don't know about you, Matt. I couldn't sit down and watch this in one go. I had to break this up and watch it over 2 or 3 evenings.
It's 2 nights for myself. Yeah.
So anyway,
I kind of want to get.
It's understandable that by this point it's the second last match before the main event of the evening.
Correct,
You're ready just to get that underway.
Yeah, let's go.
That's right. Alrighty, so we're finally here. We're finally at the main event of the evening.
Yes.
After a long night, we've got Randy Savage taking on DiBiase in the final of the tournament for the belt. Yep. But first, we've got to have all the pomp and ceremony. So we've got Bob Uecker coming down the aisle, introduced as the special guest announcer. Yep. Bob Uecker introduces Vanna White as the special guest timekeeper. So finally, we've got this moment of Vanna White and Bob Uecker meeting. Yep. Vanna White comes down with the 20-man security detail.
It went off. Like, that crowd absolutely loved Vanna White at that time.
Yeah, she's definitely the Hollywood star attraction of the event.
Yeah.
And here's where we get some comments from Jesse Ventura that really reflect the era. Jesse Ventura makes comments along the lines of, we know Vanna White knows the alphabet because she's the world's most famous letter turner, but she's here to be the timekeeper. Does she even know how to count? So he starts making comments along those lines and calling Bob Uecker a lecherous old man. And Bob Uecker finally gets his kiss from Vanna White and starts convulsing and carrying on and really selling it. So there's a lot of this kind of reflections of the 80s era going on. But look, eventually we get to the match. So we've got Ted DiBiase coming down the aisle with Andre the Giant.
Andre again,
Virgil's still nowhere to be found.
Gone, yep.
And then once again we've got Randy Savage and Liz. Once again, new outfits.
Again, yeah. Well, he's back in his orange, isn't he?
He's back in his orange. That's right.
So your favourite.
That's right. My personal choice.
Yeah.
So we've got the match getting underway, and from what I remember here, Andre gets involved early.
Yeah.
And
so
just,
you know where it's going to go, don't you?
And constantly makes his presence known. So he's grabbing Savage's leg and just kind of putting himself into the action.
Yeah.
The commentator's doing a great job of the storytelling, of setting of reminding us of the fact that this is an uphill battle for Randy Savage. Yeah. Not only has he had one more match than DiBiase, but he's got to contend with Andre the Giant. And while it's great to have, Miss Elizabeth as your valet, she's not going to contribute like Andre the Giant is to this.
Absolutely, yeah. And so what does the crowd do? The crowd are chanting.
That's right. I found this interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously Hogan makes his presence felt in this match, as we'll get to, but the crowd are already chanting for Hogan. As soon as Andre the Giant gets involved in this match, we've got the crowd chanting for Hogan.
I know.
So I believe what happened then was Savage gets up on the... So I believe Ted DiBiase's out of the ring.
Outside the ring, yep.
Randy Savage gets up on the top rope to hit an axe handle or a big elbow from the top rope. Andre stands in the way and dares DiBiase to do the move on him. So once again, we've got Andre continuing to get involved.
Yep.
That's the Hogan chanting in the crowd pick up.
Yep.
That's when Savage kind of confers with Liz and sends Liz backstage.
Yep,
and who does she return with?
The Hulkster.
That's right. And
real American.
We get the biggest pop of the night at this point.
Massive.
Because at this point, like, Matt, you're talking about your fatigue watching this event. The crowd is not that wild prior to Hogan coming out.
No.
It's been a long event, and I feel like the noise in the crowd reflects that. But when Hogan comes down the aisle, the crowd absolutely erupts.
Yeah,
and I listen, obviously a big area of debate around this event is Hogan's involvement and Hogan taking the spotlight while this is Savage and DiBiase's moment.
Yeah.
But look, I liked it. Hogan pulls up a chair ringside, glares at DiBiase and Andre and makes it known that
I'm here
the
watching.
bullshit stops here.
Yeah,
I'm here watching. But the bullshit doesn't stop. We've got some interesting spots. Now, Andre continues to get involved and you know, Hulk kind of squares off with Andre. But Andre ends up distracting the ref while Randy Savage is in a sleeper hold.
Yep.
And I believe Hulk actually gets in there and hits DiBiase in the back with the chair. So we've got the biggest crowd favourite. We've got the people's champion pulling off a classic bad guy move.
I know. And not being called up on it.
Like not being called up on it. So yeah, we've got the ref contending with Andre.
We didn't see it, I guess.
Hulkster gets in there and hits DiBiase in the back with the chair.
Yeah.
We've got a big moment, one of my favourite moments. At this point in time, DiBiase's out, Savage goes to the top rope, hits the big elbow while the cameras are flashing, gets the pinfall, and Randy Savage, for the very first time, is your WWF champion.
Correct, yeah. What a moment.
That's right, what a moment. And then at that point in time, the Hulkster races to get the belt.
Yeah, that was
gets
strange.
it into the hands of Savage. And when Hulk raced off to get the belt, I was like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I guess the simple visual of Hulk Hogan handing the belt to Macho Man Randy Savage is what this is all about, is a passing of the torch.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, ultimately, that wouldn't be the case because Hulk Hogan's would continue to be the face of the company even beyond WrestleMania 4. But in that moment, we've got a passing of the torch.
Correct.
We've got, Hulk Hogan really putting over, trying to, really kind of selling the fact that Randy Savage is the man.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, he's got him involved in everything. He's got the hand up. They're posing together. This is the new guy. He's the new me.
That's right.
Give him the support instead of me.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. So I guess here's where we can get to some overall thoughts on the event. I actually like the fact that Hogan was there as Randy Savage's mate, putting him over, selling him as the guy, and passing the torch. But I didn't like the fact that the way we got here is through Hogan interfering in the match itself. Now, you could argue that Hogan's only doing what Andre was doing in involving himself, but I would have preferred it if Hulk was there to battle with Andre on the sidelines, while Randy Savage got the clean pin.
Yes, and dealt with DiBiase himself. He didn't need anyone to assist.
That's right.
And that would have maybe put him up a little bit more of a peg instead of requiring Hulk's assistance.
I think so. Look, ultimately the crowd is chanting for Hogan to come out and to get involved and help even the score. So, Hogan is the crowd favourite. The people want him there, and he's there sharing in the spotlight and helping to put over Savage as the guy, but in doing so, he's also not allowing Savage to fully have that moment.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's an interesting situation. Now, the night ends with that iconic visual. I've seen it on magazine covers. I've seen it on trading cards. We've got, Savage with Liz up on his shoulder. Liz is holding the belt. Hogan's pointing to them. And that's that kind of moment that finishes the evening. Alrighty, so it's been a long event. I'm sure it's been a long video. Let's wrap this up by talking about the overall impressions or kind of just the overall feelings on the event as a whole.
Yes.
Let me kick things off. My impressions of the event as a whole is too many matches. Far from the best in terms of in-ring action. There's a lot of matches that, even as we're going through here and reviewing them and going back over the match list, there's a lot of matches that I can't really remember much about. So a lot of non-memorable matches and a lot of matches that just didn't have much engaging in-ring action. But what I did like about this event is the storytelling. The way the story is told in terms of crowning a new champion. Randy Savage going through the absolute ringer in order to get there. Ted DiBiase using the partnership with Andre the Giant to kind of cheat and steal his way there. And, this whole story of paving the way for a new champion. Because the interesting thing here is this is WrestleMania 4. WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3 all finished with Hulk Hogan as the champion. So, this is very much a changing of the guard. And I do like the way that torch was passed from Hogan to Randy Savage through that friendship. So I like the event as far as storytelling goes, but to me it's not particularly memorable as far as the in-ring action goes. Even that final match for the title. The match itself was not the best WrestleMania match you'll ever see, especially considering we're coming off WrestleMania 3, which was an absolute momentous battle between Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan.
Correct.
And also one of the greatest matches of all time between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. You're not going to say this is the best WrestleMania for wrestling.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I agree with you. Just too long, too many matches, a lot of unmemorable matches. There was some moments with, I guess, the storytelling. WWF they did really well back then with the storytelling, and we don't have that a lot these days with the stories. They just hash things together. It's like names out of a hat, but back then they could really tell a story, and the evening showed it. But yeah, I agree with you. Just too many matches.
What about favourite and least favourite matches?
Look, I think my favourite, just due to the fun factor, was these guys here, the Honky Tonk and Beefcake. I found myself laughing, and it just reinvigorated me at the point where I was kind of like a little bit...
You needed to pick me up, and they gave it to you.
And they gave it to me, so that's a great moment. The least one was just the bash and crash of Hercules and Ultimate Warrior.
It was bash and crash.
Yeah.
There was nothing technical about it. It was just two big dudes getting at it.
And maybe as a kid, as a young fellow, I think I did find that. It's funny, I guess, as you get older, what you appreciate more. And that type of match these days, I just don't appreciate.
Does nothing for you.
No. But
Fair
as
enough.
a kid, I might have enjoyed it.
Fair enough.
What about you?
I don't have any matches that I hated. To me, my least favourite matches are the ones that I can remember nothing about. Like, a lot of those first round matches, you know, the Dino Bravo, the Don Morocco, the one-man gang, the Bam Bam Bigelow, they were just there to get us from 14 men to 8 pretty quickly. So there were matches there that I couldn't tell you anything about. They were non-memorable. They were the ones that I would categorise as the least favourite.
Yep.
The matches that I did really enjoy, look, I liked the Demolition and Strikeforce match. I liked the contrast between Strikeforce and Demolition. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Mr. Fuji's presence in that match. I enjoyed the Battle Royal. I thought that was a fun way to kick off the event.
Yeah, true.
And just kind of, you know, set the tone of the event. Yep. Even though it set a tone that the rest of the event didn't really meet in terms of like action.
Yeah, true.
And then my other favourite match of the night, because it's the culmination, it's the payoff for this long tournament, is Savage and DiBiase.
Yeah, it was a good match. Well, the interesting fact was it wasn't supposed to be Randy Savage that won it. It was supposed to be Ted DiBiase. But I think the fact was that Honky Tonk, it was all because of Honky Tonk. He didn't want to drop the belt at the time and lose that championship. And then the WWE thought, well, we can't have two baddies holding the main two belts, Intercontinental and the World Championship. So in the end, they've given it to Macho Man to be the champion.
I wouldn't have hated Ted DiBiase winning that belt.
No. And, well, I'm going to... But apparently, there's a little bit of information that when he did win the belt from Hulk Hogan, when he bought the belt from Andre, he actually did a show and he was announced as the world champion. One show.
Right.
And then he got stripped of it.
Because officially speaking, I don't believe Ted DiBiase is recognised as a WWF champion.
Yeah.
But, I mean, listen, I liked for all the faults of this event, I did like the outcome of Savage holding the belt. But can you imagine, after 3 years of only Hogan holding the title, not only do we have a new champion, but we have the biggest tentpole event of the WWF WrestleMania finishing with a bad guy holding the belt.
100%. And like that would have been amazing.
It would have, it would have
different.
It would have been a shock to the system. It would have been a shock to the fans of the WWF in that era. But
DiBiase would have been brilliant.
He would have been brilliant. Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, DiBiase never held the belt, and I'm kind of bummed about that. I think he deserved far better than never winning the WWF title. Now, with that said, a big part of DiBiase's legacy is the $1 million title, and you know the $1 million title, although it's not the WWF title, it is it's a recognizable image.
Correct.
And
his $1 million belt.
You know, more wrestlers have held the WWF World Championship than had their own belt.
Yeah, that's
true. So, you know, the legacy of Ted DiBiase is definitely one that he should be proud of. I thought Ted DiBiase was great. But anyway, that's the event. So so we've done favourite matches, we've done least favourite matches. Yep. Why don't we wrap things up with our moment or moments of the Mania?
Oh, a moment of the Mania. I think would have to be just the celebration between now. Although I think maybe Hulk his presence was a little bit over the top. I think just Randy Savage winning it and shaking hands with Hulk Hogan. It's got to be based on that moment. That's what it was all leading up to, and I think just that moment where he was given the championship belt and his hand was raised by Hulk.
Yeah. So although it was a long and tiring way to get there, where we finished, that's your moment.
Yeah, that's my moment. I think and. Yeah, that's all I've got really to say.
What's
yours?
Well, I've got two. For pure enjoyment, I loved the mauling of the Weasel.
Okay, the mauling.
So I loved Matilda and the Bulldogs chasing after Bobby Heenan and Jesse the Body and Gorilla Monsoon selling this vicious mauling. That was just a fun moment that made me feel good. I enjoyed that. But my true moment of the Mania is Macho Man Randy Savage hitting the big elbow from the top rope while all the camera bulbs flashed. No smartphones in sight. Just old school camera bulbs flashing while Macho Man hits that big elbow. That was my moment of the Mania. I thought that was brilliant.
I'm going to have to rewatch that. That'll sounds amazing. I didn't. Sometimes you just don't catch things.
No, it was great. I mean, you could. It's almost like all the photographers there knew that it was heading towards this conclusion, so everyone was trying to capture that moment. So there we have it for our wrestling retrospective for Wrestlemania 4.
Yeah.
A fun event, certainly an event that's not without its faults. As we've discussed, but look, this was a fun process. It was a fun process not only to revisit WrestleMania 4 for the first time in 30 years, it was a fun process to do this video with you.
Oh, thanks, Scott.
And I hope that we can do another one soon. And while I'm at it, thank you very much for hosting in your collection room. I hope the fine folks watching this haven't been too distracted by the awesome vintage toy display going on behind us. But mate, it's been great. Thank you.
Very kind, Scott. No, we've been wanting to do this for a while. We just both love our wrestling from that period. And to get together finally and to discuss it, it's just great. Yeah.
That's it.
So I've been looking forward to this process. I think like going forward, we'll just do these, on the when we get together next time.
That's it. No set schedule. But I'd prefer if this isn't a one-off. Like, we're not necessarily going to be pumping these out on a weekly or strictly monthly basis. Whenever we get together, we'll just try and put one of these together for you. Provided you're enjoying it, definitely let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. And on that note, we'd love to get some thoughts as to other kind of key, iconic WWF events of the 80s and 90s that you might want to see a wrestling retrospective on.
100%, yeah. Just put in the comments, just let us know. There's I guess we're trying to look mainly between this WrestleMania event and maybe about mid-95.
Look, I don't mind going back further.
Ooh.
I don't mind going back further, but yeah, look, for me, it's up until 95 because
95,
that was the era of my childhood fandom of wrestling. Those are the events that even if we weren't doing this, I would still ultimately like to go back and watch, whether it's on my VHS collection or whether it's streaming through the WWE network. So if there's specific events within that period of the 80s and 90s that you would like to see a look at, a match by match look at, and get our thoughts on, definitely drop those in the comments. That'd be great, and we'll see what kind of suggestions we get.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great idea, Scott.
And I think that's about it. Any final thoughts, or we covered it all?
No, I think we've covered it all. It's just great to do this.
Yeah, fun to do it. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yep.
That's it for now, guys. Once again, let us know your thoughts in the comments on WrestleMania 4, your memories of WrestleMania 4, and other events that you'd like us to take a look at in a wrestling retrospective. But for now, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching, and until the next one, cheers. All right, it's nice to actually have someone to
cheers.
Because normally I'm cheersing the viewer.